Hey Retro community! In today's video, we'll be discussing the GoTek floppy emulator, and more specifically, how to flash the FlashFloppy firmware. Doing this will allow you to load Amiga disk images among other computer disk images as well, such as the Atari line of computers, and by default it supports PC disk images, but these things can also be used in non-computing devices that have floppy disks, such as a sewing machine and certain music keyboards and other instruments. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to do this for the Amiga 500 I've got. And one of the reasons why we're doing this is because of the fact that these things, the floppy drives in these are, well, they're getting older, and they're getting harder to refurbish and repair because parts are getting harder to come by. So I went and got one of these after watching many different YouTube videos and YouTubers who went and did something similar. Now, this one I purchased on Amazon. I think it was like 22 bucks or something like that. And this is one of the models that are recommended, a 3 segment display. They also come in white and black. I got the beige one because it'll match a lot more closely with the Amiga chassis and everything. Mine did not, however, have these header pins in here. I had to solder these on, and they're a little crooked, but whatever, they'll do. Yours may have them, yours may not. Mine didn't, and I'll have a video later showing me soldering them in. All you do is take these 3 screws out, and that's really all there is to it. Now, there are some other mods you can do to this, such as replacing this with an OLED display, which will show the disk image name instead of just the number, as well as installing a piezo speaker, which will allow it to kind of mimic floppy disk noises. Now, that's probably more of a personal taste thing. I'm not going to focus on those right now. I may do an OLED mod in the future, but for now, I just want to worry about getting the header pins on and getting the firmware flashed on. So with that being said, let's go ahead and we'll move to my computer so I can show you some of the software you have to download, and then we'll go on to the soldering portion and then the flashing portion. Now, I should also note that some of these GoTeks won't quite fit into the A500 case. Some users just take the drive, leave the drive sitting out. Some will remove the faceplate and just have it sitting bare. You can buy replacement bezels for it. It'll help it fit a little bit better. But even the ones that do fit might not give you direct access to the floppy or the USB port and the buttons. So be wary of that. It's going to be up to you how you want to mount this. But to get around the USB port issue, you can use like a micro USB drive. A couple examples are the SanDisk Cruiser or the PNY Micro Metal. Those are the first 2 that came up when I started Googling micro USB drives. You can probably also use a USB extension cable, or maybe even like a USB to compact flash SD card, something like that. Or maybe some other USB storage device. I'm not sure about those. Your mileage may vary. I'm focusing on just using a flash drive. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to focus on these items here. Obviously, you're going to need a GoTek, USB flash drive, obviously. Some Amiga floppy disk images, you'll have to provide your own, especially if you're using commercial software. A Windows-based PC, or you can use a Mac or Linux, but I'm using Windows. If you're using Windows, a terminal emulation app such as Putty, a USB TTL adapter, and I'll put a picture of one up so you know what I'm talking about. Pin headers, if your GoTek is missing the important ones, which mine was. And if the above, a soldering iron. Also, if above, a Phillips screwdriver, because you'll need to remove 3 screws. Some jumper DuPont connector wires. Boot jumpers, there's a similar jumpers to what you would find on an old IDE hard drive or SCSI drive. And you'll need the STM32 flasher, which is free from ST's website, but you have to register to get it. Although there is a community-driven open source utility available that should work, but I'm focusing on the official utility, and you'll also need the FlashFloppy firmware, obviously. So, with that being said, here are a list of some of the files that I downloaded. This is I believe this is the open source. Oh no, this is the open source firmware. This is the official one, the FlashFloppy firmware. I've also got these files here. I'm not sure if I'll need them, but I've got them anyway. And I'll put links to where I got all these files and stuff. And these are a few months old. There's probably newer versions, but I'm going to focus on this just because I've already got them. So again, if you're missing the required header pins, you'll have to crack open the GoTek, solder some pins on, and go from there. And I will put that video in next. Okay, now that the furnace is shut off, so this is a GoTek, and if you remember earlier part of my video, you have to connect certain pins to a USB serial adapter, a TTL adapter, more specifically. And if your particular GoTek doesn't have pins, the required pins like mine don't, you have to solder some on. Now you only need 3 of them. Well, 2 of them technically. Well, I take it back. You need 4 of them. You need these 2 here, because these are the transmit and receive, and you need to jumper these 2 as well to put it into, I'm guessing, programming mode. And then you just have to connect the 5-volt and ground pin here to the adapter to supply power to the drive while it's flashing. But of course, since this is missing the required pins, we're going to put those on. Personally, I'm electing just to put all the header pins on just because. And we'll have to remove the GoTek as well. Let's disconnect. Now, let me record this so I know. 2 right on the left, 2 white on the right. Of course, at this time, if you're going to perform the additional mods such as the piezo speaker and the OLED display that lets you actually read out what's on the thumb drive instead of just the number, you can do that at this time too. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to worry about getting these header pins on. So I'm going to do both sides just to be on the safe side, but you'll need to do the side you're soldering. So the top row has 5 pins, the bottom one has 4. So obviously that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to pretend the pads just because it'll be easier to solder everything on. What I am going to do is cheat a little bit, and I'm going to put a little bit of solder on the soldering tip, because what I want to do is try to secure one of the pins to the board and then the other side to hold the pins in place, since I don't have proper helping hands. The ones that I have won't extend in far enough to hold this board in place. So I'm just going to hold the pins with my hands and go from there. And now I'm just going to check everything, make sure that I didn't short anything, make sure the solder is as clean as possible. Sorry I didn't focus well over there, but there are no shorts basically. Everything looks fine. The header pins are on securely. A little crooked, but they are what they are. I'm just checking the spacing out with the jumper right now. Not that it's necessary, but I just want to do it anyway. Everything seems fine otherwise. But this one is the transmit, this one's the receive. Obviously on the other end, you're going to crisscross them because you want TX to RX and RX to TX. This last one here is reset. Not sure what it does. I'll have to find out. And then again, you're going to need to connect. Looks like you also, nope, it's just these here. So 5-volt and power. Not sure what these 4 down here do, but again, you may need it in the future. So at this point, that's where I'm going to stop because I'm not going to worry about the piezo speaker mod or the OLED screen mod. I may do them in the future, but for now, that's it. Okay, with all of that done, we can get the software ready as well as the appropriate pins jumper to the TTL adapter. Connect your jumper wires to the TTL adapter as such, and there'll be an image posted on screen. While that's connected, we're going to extract the contents of FlashFloppy, whatever version .zip. I'm using 7-zip just because it's a nice lean zip utility. The one built into Windows or Mac should be fine too. And I'm just going to extract it to its own folder here. And so what you want to do is you're going to open up the Flash utility, but you really need to know what COM port everything is on. So to do that, in Windows 10, right-click the Start button and go to Device Manager. And what you're going to then see is you'll have ports, COM and LPT, and my particular adapter is on COM3. Yours may not be. Yours may be COM2, COM5, whatever. And so now what you want to do is, if you haven't installed it yet, go ahead and install it. I don't know why they call it a demo, but whatever. And let's launch. So now again, we've got to remember it's COM3. And I don't believe anything else matters. And next, what you want to do is hit next. You have to do remove protection. There's no way around that, and that's because the firmware by default is write protected. So remove protection. Wait until fully erased, device will reset. And that's fine. We'll let it go do its thing. Now, once this comes back up, you want to make sure you make note of the flash size, which should show up around here. More than likely, it'll be 128K. Could be more, could be less. Hopefully, it's 128K. So, all right, so just restart this device. So, protection is gone, as you can see. So, flash size 128K. Remember that, because you're going to need to know what that is based on your device for the next one. So, by default, it should automatically select this, and that should be correct. If it's not, select one that you have. And then all I have to do is hit next. And we're going to leave download. We're going to choose download to device, and we're going to select our FlashFloppy firmware. So we're going to open this. We want to make sure that verify after download is checked off, just to be on the safe side. That's fine. So we're going to go ahead and hit next, and the flashing process begins. And that's all there is to it. And hit close, and we can disconnect everything from the adapters, and that's all there is to it. For now, of course. Now, one other thing you do need to be aware of, and that's once everything is flashed, you need to set a jumper. And I've got the case off for the purposes of this video, but it should be accessible on most GoTeks. There's a jumper that's currently set to S1. You want to set that to S0. And the reason you want to do that is because that will basically set the drive to DF0, which is what the Amiga requires for an internal drive. Now, if you are having some issues getting the computer to detect the GoTek when you're doing the flash process, there's if you're looking at the back of the device, there's a pin in the upper right corner of the headers where you have the RX and TX wires and all that connected. That is the reset line. If you short that to ground, you can reset the device. You'll need to do it for like a second, and most of the time that'll get the drive to detect. So now that you've got that done, what you need to do is prepare a USB drive. Now, I thought I had a micro drive laying around. I don't. I apparently use it for another project, so I have to use a standard USB drive, and unfortunately that may not fit in the case, so I'll be using the extension cable. But it is what it is. So what you want to do is plug the drive into the computer, and you want to right click it. Even if it's already formatted, do it anyway, you never know. And you want to make sure that it's FAT32. Everything else should be fine. Volume label, you can leave it if you want to call it something different. I'm going to call it Amiga, because why not? Yes, we want to do that. And we're done. Okay, so once your drive is formatted, there's some optional files you can place on to the root of it if you wish. For example, ff.cfg. It's a global configuration of the drive emulation, display handling, things like that. So I copied that to the root. You can also copy it to a subfolder labeled FF. And in fact, if you have a folder labeled FF, it will ignore the file in the root. Now, this particular version of FlashFloppy defaults to the JC, which is jumper closed, which is compatible for IBM PC. What we want to change it to is Shugart, which is the most compatible. I think newer versions of the firmware will support it by default. I don't think we have to change anything else in here. These are all just optional things you can do. If you have the OLED display, you may need to do some configuration changes. If you want to use this on a different machine type, you'll have to do some additional configuration changes. But that should basically be it. By default, it's going to just go into what they call native mode. No need for configuration files. It allows direct selection of any valid image file on your USB stick. So basically just drop them down here, and that should technically be it. There's an index mode option, which it switches between image names in the form of, according to them, DSK A00000001, and so on and so on. And then there's also HXC compatibility mode, which is a legacy mode, recording an image selector program such as selector.adf, which we're not going to be using today because I want to try to keep things as simple as possible. But if you do want to do that, what you want to do is copy the autoboot.hfe and the hxcsdfe.cfg file to the root of your USB drive. And I'll put a link down in the description below to all of this information so that you have it. And then after that, all that's really left is to put some images on there. Now, I have, besides just Workbench, I have one game, and it's Wayne Gretzky Hockey. So we're just going to copy that over here. You want to make sure it's an ADF format. Some programs might do hard drive installers. Those I don't think will work with this. I also have, that I downloaded this system test, not sure. I don't remember where I got it from, but we're just going to dump it on there anyway. So what I'm going to do now is just eject it. And you want to eject the drive. Don't just pull it out. You want to eject it, and that's it. Now we're going to go to the Amiga, install it, and see how it works. So what we're going to do is go ahead and install this into the Amiga. Turn this upside down. Remove these 3 screws down here, as well as these 2 for the floppy drive itself. Now, it should open. Now the other issue is the ground screw here, which grounds the keyboard to, well, ground, is in the way. So I don't want to have to remove the keyboard, but it's not that big of a deal because that's all you really have to do. Now what I want to do ultimately is turn this into an external drive so that I have, an external drive. The other thing I might have to do, I don't know if the GoTek will support it, although it does have the mount holes for it. But before we go and mount everything, but we should just make sure it works, right? As you see, the floppy drive cable is too short. Or is that the power cable that's short? Let's see. Looks like it's the floppy power cable that's too short. I might have to get a longer one. You can always extend it with some jumpers for now. But again, we just want to make sure this works before I go and put it all together anyway. Let's go hook it up to a TV and see. Okay, moment of truth. Let's make sure nothing blows up. Actually, I'll get this cover out of the way, since it's not really needed right now. I have absolutely no idea if this is going to even work or not. So, in fact, I'm not getting any power on the drive itself. Okay, I'm a dunce. I forgot to take the jumper off over here. Now it seems to be doing something. I don't know if it's a countdown or if it's scanning stuff. Keyboard matrix test. Oh, so it's loaded the diagnostic software first, I'm guessing because of it being in alphabetical order. Let me bring this over to the TV so you can see what's on screen. So as you can see, there's a little keyboard test. Let's find out what's going on. Left shift key, left alt key. But as you can see, it is working. It booted the image off of the USB drive, which is freaking awesome. And we're not going to go through this entire keyboard test. What I want to do though is see if I can select the next image, select image 1, and that's fine. I don't know if the game is auto boot or not. Let's see. Looks like it is. I don't know if I've got the sound hooked up right or not. So apparently the image I downloaded apparently has some sort of intro on it. But I do own the game, so I just don't have a way of ripping it right now. So I was hoping that I could just grab an image off the internet, but we'll see. I don't even know how to start this. I hit space. Let's see if that does anything or not. Apparently not, but it's at least loading the images, so I have to mess around with it and see what format. Maybe the image is in a bad format. Maybe I just have a bad download. Maybe I just have to hook up my old drive and make it external so that I can actually rip the game properly. Which, by the way, when I did my KozTech Mini on manuals and I pulled the manual out for the game, I'm like 98% sure that this game was probably used once, if at all, because the manual was in pristine shape and the envelope that holds the floppy disk did not have a broken seal on it until I opened it up to break the seal. The discs themselves also, well, the disc also looks like it's in pristine shape, so I don't think this game was ever played. I think someone bought it, sat on the shelf, they forgot about it, and then sold it to the retro game store I picked this up from. Well, it is what it is, so I know at the very least that it reads disk images, and that was the whole point of this. Obviously, I still have to get a longer power cable. I have to get this thing mounted in the case and go from there, but maybe I'll play with some demos or something like that. But that's the basic process of getting FlashFloppy onto a GoTek. Probably a little bit longer than I expected it to be. It is what it is. But if you liked today's video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up, leave a comment below, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you didn't like the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs down, but please, please, please leave a comment as to why so I can use that to make improvements in the future. Thanks all, and I'll catch you later.